Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to American Lady and Sadhguru, Why Your Teachings Don't Work for the Poor. Rich Sadhguru Adiyogi. So, interestingly enough, I was thinking about this a little bit. It's not quite the exact topic, but similar. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I was watching a YouTube video about mental health. And anyways, I was thinking how this is not necessarily a big issue in developing countries or third world countries, whichever you prefer, versus developed countries or first world countries. And it's really, really odd. It's like, how do you become so developed that all of a sudden you start having mental health issues? I kind of get why. And the biggest thing is it's kind of what happens with immigrants when they first immigrate to, say, a underdeveloped country to a developed country. The immigrants who immigrate there are so grateful and so happy. They have more opportunities, have luxuries that they didn't have before. Their children, if they say they were born and they move to to whatever country it is that's developed, just say, for example, in America, as America does import a whole bunch of immigrants. Just use this for an example. You know, and if the children grew up and remembering where they came from and come over here, they can appreciate the things that are over here. But then, so the parents, then the children over here, then I guess you could say maybe first generation American, because these two are not, they become American citizen, but they're not born in America. I don't know how that technically works. But then the first generation American still are kind of tied a little bit to their origin country, because there's still strong ties between the parents and the children, because they were there and they remember it. The first generation are only living vicariously through their parents and grandparents. Second generation, not so much anymore, because again, their parent is vicariously, and then this one is like another step back. Then the third generation that's lived here now are fully integrated, have no idea what it's like to live in their great grandparents' country. So their only experience is where they live, is, for example, America. So they have their standards of living and everything is wherever they're at. So whether you live in a big city or even a smaller city is still pretty good compared to perhaps where they came from. And this has become their standard, and now they don't know what struggle is. They don't know a lot of things, and the struggles are different. Over there you're struggling for food, job, shelter, all these things. And coming over here, everything's so much better. But people who live here, it's a struggle. They don't know what real struggle is. I don't know. I thought about this, and this is like, people who lived and grew up in developed countries, who don't know what it's like living in underdeveloped countries or developing countries. Man. Anyways, talk too much. Right, let's continue.
We live in a world of contrast, at least as I perceive it. There is obviously the rich and the poor. There are the ones who are impoverished and the satiated. We live in a country where 300 million people go to bed hungry every night. How do we deal with these big social issues? And what is the one message that you would like to give to all of us, where we as individuals can make our own little, big, whatever contribution to being part of the solution rather than waiting for somebody else to do something?
Now you're immediately getting into the missionary mode.
We can try a little bit of that.
Yes, it's a serious problem and an unfortunate problem, because we are living in a land which has over 12,000 years of agricultural history. Probably the only place on the planet like this. As far as I know, except a few other places in South America, nowhere else on the planet was agriculture organized 12,000 years ago. So we have enormous experience of agriculture, which means the science of producing food. And we're living in a land where 12 months of the year you can grow what you want. Many farmers in Tamil Nadu take 6 crops, 4 crops actually, but in between the intercropping, totally 6 products they're taking out of the same piece of land.
Right.
Nowhere else on the planet this is really possible. In spite of this, half the people are hungry simply because of apathy, not because of lack of food, not because that it is not possible to fulfill this. I feel a focused effort in a matter of 5 years, 5 to 8 years, very comfortably we can crest this. It should not even take that much time, but if we are determined, within 5 years' time, it is possible to cross this. And it's important to cross this because when you say India, I know a lot of poetry has been written about how beautiful it is, our mountains, our rivers, our whatever. But for 1.25 billion people, you neither have enough mountains, nor rivers, nor land, not even a piece of sky, believe me. The only thing that you have is people. If these people are well-nourished, competent, inspired, this can be the greatest miracle. But right now, 60% of India's population, even their skeletal system has not grown to full size.
That's pretty big.
Or in other words, we are producing a totally underdeveloped humanity. If your body does not grow to its full size, neither will your brains. There's medical evidence to show that first 4 years of your life, if you did not get the necessary nourishment, your brain is approximately 60% of what it should be.
Right.
So with half-brained people, the next generation, what nation are you going to build? You're going to be a big disaster. If you don't fix nourishment, we are going to be an enormous disaster. It's waiting, it's a silent bomb. It doesn't make noise. Very quietly, it's going to implode upon us. So this is something that has to be fixed on a war footing, must be.
So what is the role? I know all of us as individuals have a role to play. We are all part of a corporate, an academic institution, part of a community and a society. So what do you believe is the responsibility? I'm not talking about corporate social responsibility. I'm simply talking about corporate responsibility when it comes to being part of fixing some of the problems that you've just spoken about.
Well, I don't know about corporate responsibility. I don't believe in putting responsibility necessarily on anyone. However, there are actions that you take that you have to be responsible for. But other than that, I don't necessarily believe, like, if you own something, you're responsible for it. Other than that, you know, you don't own people, obviously, but if you hire people, you're not necessarily responsible for them, but you are in some degrees. Because to me, responsibility means you have control over it, in a sense. So if you're responsible for someone, it can almost be seen as like a master-slave situation, because you're responsible for your kids. Your kids must listen to you or you punish them. Very similar to a master-slave kind of dynamic. But there's a reason for that, because kids are dumb. But anyways, but in terms of this, I was thinking, like, you can't just give them food. Obviously you kind of have to at least hopefully allow them to survive. That is kind of a thing, but you know, that's not really a long-term solution. The solution would be to find a way to provide them jobs so that they can afford the foods themselves. It gives them a purpose, you could say. I can provide for myself, I can provide for my family, and it's not only good for their, well, physical health, in terms of their mental health as well, that they're able to do something to make change. So, you know, whether that be like making shoes, making clothes, making, you know, whatever kind of vegetables or fruits, you know, providing a job where they're at, obviously, because I doubt all of these people who live in, say, very remote areas have, how do I say, like, transportation. So that's just a very difficult thing to try to solve. But who's going to do it? I don't know. But I think obviously providing them, trying to find a way to provide them a way for them to earn money or to earn their food. That way, it's a bit more of a respect thing. That's the way I look at it. So, you giving me food, you're like, poor me or whatever. Sure, sure. But if I can earn it, I think that means so much more. It's not that I'm being like, oh, I'm so poor, or poor as in like, oh, you're poor financially, but poor as a human being because you can't provide for yourself. Whereas if I'm earning something, it's a bit more, I get self-respect, and that's of course if you're affected by those things. But you get the point.
No, we are very much involved with nourishment, education, health of the rural populations. I've been talking to many leading lights. Not much light out there. Whenever I speak to a lot of people, not all of them, many of them, if I tell them, we're planting 114 million trees, you could do something, they'll tell me a very passionate story, how his wife or his mother has a trust where she planted 108 trees around their factory, and how they have grown, how beautiful they are, and how they're enjoying it. In all this passion, I just, okay, what's there to say? 108 trees are good, I'm not saying no, but if your capacity was only 108, I'll bow down to you. Your capacity is 108 million, not 108, but you're satisfying yourself with 108. You talk about nourishment, you say, you know what, my maid's children, they were so malnourished, 3 of them, every Sunday we feed them. These kind of stories I've heard of great compassion and love. So, there is a whole culture of doing something for your satisfaction or doing something because you want to buy a ticket to heaven.
Yeah.
I want people to come to a place where you being fulfilled should happen within you. If you want to go to heaven, please leave. But if you want to be a solution, there's another way to work.
Right.
I fed 2 children and I feel very happy. It's all right, I appreciate that. I'm glad for those 2 children. But this is not a solution, this is only for satisfaction. So it's time, at least those people who are in a certain level of capability, I would say, when I say capability, all of you are thinking, oh, okay, some big corporate leader. I'm saying all of you are in a certain level of capability who should see how to bring a solution, not do something for your silly satisfaction. You can be satisfied by eating food, by simply sitting quietly, by sleeping well, doing whatever. Satisfaction need not come through somebody else's suffering. You don't have to fulfill your satisfaction because of this, somebody is suffering, that is not the basis of your suffering. And if you buy a ticket to heaven through that suffering, I don't know, heaven will turn into hell probably for you. I hope it does.
The power of inclusiveness. Now, if we go back in the world, say 30 years, we see that there were many signs of opening. Walls were coming down. Many initiatives were taken to open up the world, which I think brought many benefits. If we look around the world now, there are many signs of closure. Walls are being constructed, there are many policy measures being taken by many governments, closing borders to persons, closing borders to goods. I wonder if I may ask how you see all this?
Closing borders doesn't mean that you're not allowing people in. Closing borders just meaning securing your country, that people who are not permitted to come in or people who want to come in through it legally. Closing borders doesn't mean… eventually, probably, sometime in the future, we all will be united under one banner, the banner being planet Earth. But until that time, until we can Probably. It's going to be a while, I'm sure. But until that time, obviously we're going to have to secure our borders. We don't want criminals or I don't know. Criminals is the only thing I can really think of. Just criminals coming in. Asylum seekers, there's a different story. People who want to immigrate, it's a different story. But you got to make sure that they're there legitimately, as in asylum seekers and people who want to immigrate and people who works on a visa card or a green card or whatever it's called, like visa or green card, maybe both. Because the the economy of a country can get destabilized by all of a massive influx of people. It will destabilize the country and could end up ruining the country. So there has to be in a sense, this is my opinion, I don't know if it's true or not. I believe it to be true though. But economy is very, how to say, if you have too many people and all of them are willing to work $1 less than the next person, all of a sudden minimum wage will become very, very low and no one will be able to afford anything, and a lot of people are going to be out of jobs because there's going to be more people than jobs. Because everyone that come over here are not exactly rich to start their own business, because you need a lot of money to start a business. So obviously the influx of people is going to be a lot of people on welfare, which are going to strain the welfare system. So it's very complicated. I mean, again, America does import a lot of people. I'm guessing it's handling pretty well so far, but that's the reason why closing borders doesn't mean that no one can't come in. It's just it should be saying securing borders.
See, yes, it's true, you're seeing that as a global situation, but we need to understand this. Bringing down walls without bringing down economic disparity is not going to work. When we brought down walls, then itself we should have understood that we must strive to bring down disparity in the world. No man or woman wants to leave their home and go somewhere else to some strange land and live there just for survival. Nobody wants to do that. But it is estimated that in the next decade, there could be about 1.7 to 1.8 billion people moving or migrating. When that many people start migrating, your wall is not going to work anyway. Wall will work when they're in a few thousands, maybe a million, but when they go to a billion, your wall is not going to work, it's going to be a tragedy, because now you see a stream of people coming. Well, can every nation just open up its borders and say, welcome, live on the streets? Not possible. Yes? So the thing to do is, which I've been striving to do and I'm failed to do, is in the last 25 years I've been trying to bring some key people in the world together so that this initially we started as 1%.com, and I try to create a board, and every time we are about to do it, some warlike situation comes and some nations back away and it never happened, all right? The idea was just this: 1% of what we invest in our defense forces, as we call them, arms and armaments, what we invest, if we contribute and we institute a board of people who are from responsible businesses to be given as soft loans to these businesses to start enterprises in impoverished societies where it's not profitable to do business. A business will naturally try to do business where it's most profitable. You cannot ask them to go and do business somewhere in one corner of Asia or Africa because they are looking at their profitability. Essentially, this attitude is because money is expensive.
Yes, obviously, because if you can't make money, you can't run a business. If you can't pay your people, they're not going to work. If you can't pay the electricity, the machines are not going to work. If you can't pay for the equipment, you're not going to get any equipment to do any work. If you can't pay for the materials you need to make the stuff that you're trying to sell, then you're not going to be able to make anything because you don't have enough money. And making a profit will allow other people to see that, hey, this is very, profitable. Let me invest into this business, and that business can expand. And whenever it expands and makes more money, it can make more of the business itself in other areas. That's what a lot of people I don't say a lot of people, but there's what some people in America don't understand, especially just in Western countries, Western countries, not westernized, Western countries are struggling with. Oh my gosh.
The money is expensive. If you give them a softer money, which is not expensive, for a gestation period of 12 to 20 years and very soft kind of cushion for them to develop an enterprise, develop the talent and create industry and business in impoverished societies, the reason for these people to migrate will go. Instead of making that investment, you invest in putting up walls, you will see walls will work to a certain point. I'm not even saying it's wrong, because the sovereignty of a nation is essentially determined by the geographic borders. I'm not saying every nation can open up and let people inside, it's not possible to do that. But you will not be able to control it this way, nor is it very humane to do it that way. So the only way is, in some way we must see how economic disparity is lowered. We cannot level it absolutely, it's very, very far away, leveling it. But if we strive in the next 10 years, if there's enough investments going into various parts of the world from where people are migrating, if you start businesses there, if you start enterprises there, if you start economic activity there, then the need for them to go elsewhere to make a living could be reduced and migrations could be controlled, because nobody wants to leave their homeland if they can make a living there.
Well, that's very true, but there's also the issue with government and stuff like that. If they become a government that decides that they want to control all the businesses and control where all the money goes, it's just going to crumble again. So, yes, businesses investing into a country that doesn't have a lot of business this is actually what I was saying earlier about the bringing a job into those places amazingly. Anyways, if you didn't skip the part, but yeah, if you can make a business in an area and make them have an ability to make a living there, that'd be great. The other thing I didn't talk about was, because I didn't think about it like in other countries, but the issue would be government. You have a bad government, then they're going to take over the business because they want to make all the money, and well, there goes the investment, and then that business is going to go bankrupt because the government even the business itself could go down because it's badly managed. But if a government becomes corrupt and the government has the military, it can enforce its own laws and take all the money and whatever and watch the business crumble. Did Venezuela do that? I don't know. I heard they were quite rich with all the oils, but something happened.
The population I work with that are in the verge of homelessness or they're addicts, if I tell them that it is your intellect and it's your perception and this doesn't exist, they will laugh at me because it definitely exists.
Because it's the dumbest thing to say.
Right, so…
And this… Sorry to pause so much, but this is the thing whenever I was first getting into this, like, I can't say these things to people who are not, who don't, I won't say believe in this, but follow this particular path of life. It's like, it just sounds ridiculous. So this is the reason why whenever I speak, I have to kind of translate it. So I hope that you understand. I do need to make sure I understand it clearly and that my translation is not lost. But I try my best. And I try to translate what I think and how I interpret it, basically. Especially through my experience as best I can. And then when I speak to people who don't follow these ways, I kind of have to translate it. But obviously when you translate things, sometimes there's always a things lost in translation, but you do the best you can.
I wanted to know the spirituality that you teach, the spirituality that many gurus teach. How is it usable for someone that doesn't have food to eat?
It's not.
And it's going to become homeless, and there's so many problems, especially in America. I mean, of course I teach them resiliency, it's a different fact, but every time I want to open my mouth and use some of your teachings, I have to step back.
You can't. 3 priorities in life before you can really start doing anything else: food, water, shelter. If those 3 things aren't solved, then those are your problems. Sadhguru says, hunger, 1 problem. Full, 99. When you're full, 99 problems. Just because, the 3 biggest issues, and I think this goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning about underdeveloped countries and developed countries, where developed countries have so many problems, mental health issues and all of that, where you look at underdeveloped countries because food, water, and shelter is a problem. They work so strongly as a community and family that they work together to help each other out to make their lives better. And they're so focused on what they need to do that once shelter and food and water is taken care of, they can finally enjoy the time together, and they really appreciate that. They really cherish the time they have together when they're not working, for the most part. I'm not saying, obviously not every single, even in the underdeveloped countries, that everyone's happy, joy, or anything like that, but I have a feeling that's more so than, say, in a developed country where, food not problem, excess of food, excess of drinks, and excess of shelter, and there's still 99 problems to go through.
Now, the first problem is that you believe in the teachings, because this is the problem with the entire world. They've been cultured in some belief or the other. This is what is significant about what is referred to as Sanatana Dharma, or what is referred to as the Indian way of looking at things is, this is not a land of belief systems, this is a land of seekers. Never ever were anybody encouraged to believe anything. If you see anything that comes from that land, you will see it is all about questions, never about a belief system. If you enter an Indian home, in the same house, 5 different people are worshipping 25 different gods and goddesses. They're still not made up their minds, which is and they have no problem, they'll never fight about it.
To each their own.
Because it's a land of seeking. So, first mistake you make is you believe what I say. I'm constantly reminding you, don't believe a goddamn thing that anybody says. But don't be foolish enough to disbelieve it either. All you have to do is experiment with it. Does it work or doesn't work?
And I've said this too, is, you don't believe in what anyone says, but consider what they say, that's all. Consider it. If it makes sense to you, then try it out. If it doesn't, then don't, maybe. Give it a shot. I always like to say, give it a fair shot.
If it works, you keep it, otherwise rubbish it. What's the problem? Now, about somebody being hungry, somebody being homeless, somebody being in a war zones, all kinds of horrible things are happening on the planet. I am not ignorant of it. Anyway, you said living in a temple. I am not living in a temple. I am more of the world than you are. Every day, I want you to understand, I am running a volunteer organization with over 4,000 full-time volunteers and over 3 million part-time volunteers doing variety of work, huge projects, over a dozen businesses and the spiritual movement, okay? Now, I want you to understand, more things are going wrong with my life on a daily basis than anybody's life.
I think that's a lie, Sadhguru. Hey, are you lying?
Now, when a man is hungry, if you try to tell him, your intellect is the source of your problem…
He'll say, no, my stomach is.
It's obscene. It's obscene, it's nothing short of that. I never spoke to hungry people and said, your intellect is the source of the problem. I'm talking to people who are bulging in so many ways. In their head and in their body, they're bulging.
Uh-oh.
I'm only talking to that segment of the population. Those who are not fed well, I'm doing social projects with them, with nourishment, education, health, all for free. Will I ever go and talk to a starved man in an Indian village and tell him, your intellect is the basis of all your problems? What makes you think that I'm that stupid? Do I look like that? So you also don't do that. This is for you. You need to understand this. There are a million problems on the planet. All these million problems are essentially because those who are reasonably well have never cared to reach out and do what needs to be done in the world. In many ways, they're making sure those people don't get it. Yes. In the year 2012, we have produced enough food for 18.2 billion people. We had only 6.6 billion people in that year. But still, 50% of the population is malnourished and hardly eaten anything. This is not because there is no food, this is because you and me have not cared, isn't it? So, is it true? Is it true nobody stabbed you in the last 25 years? Yes. But is it also true you're suffering various things of tension, stress, anxiety, this, that? Is it a product of your mind or somebody else poking you from outside? It is your reaction to the existential situation outside. Instead of doing what is needed, what you see is when you see something wrong happening or when you see some suffering or something comes your way, you decide to poke yourself. This is about incapacitating yourself. Instead of seeing when there is a problem, you need empowerment, not incapacitating yourself, isn't it? I'm talking about empowering you so that your damn intelligence functions for you, not against you. The moment your intelligence is working against you, no God in the universe is going to help you and can help you. Yes, if your intelligence is turned against you, you are a finished case. So I'm saying, first let your intelligence work for you. If it works for you, there are many miraculous things that you can do for all those people who have still not eaten properly, for whom basic things have not been taken care of. That's our business, because somehow we've landed in a place where you and me are at least eating well. Once we are in such a privilege, we must use our intelligence to see what is the best thing we can do in the world, not sit here and twist yourself out. I'm saying don't twist yourself out. If you are joyful, naturally you will do the best things you can do. If I meet you when you're very happy, will you be nice to me? No. I don't believe that. When you're very happy, if I meet you, I'm sure you're a wonderful person. But when you're depressed, when you're unhappy, when you're frustrated, if I meet you, you could be a nasty person.
Not me, maybe.
This is true with every human being, isn't it?
No.
So the first and foremost work that any human being has to do is that you make this into a pleasant piece of life, so that you naturally exude this pleasantness in every possible way. If this is feeling unpleasant and you tell this one to be pleasant, is it going to work? We are trying to fix the stomach-full people right now.
I did not realize how much I spoke at the beginning of this episode would be relevant later on in this episode. I promise I don't pre-watch these videos before recording. I don't have enough time for that. I kind of have to react on the spot. So, maybe, and the bad thing about that is obviously I don't get time to think about a lot of things before I speak it. So I'm literally speaking as I think it. It can be a bad thing, but I don't know if it's been so far. I mean, I'm sure there have been a few videos, I'm sure, in my earlier days where I spoke my mind, but I didn't quite speak it clear enough. So lesson learned for sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm a nasty person, even when I'm sad or upset or whatever, because I understand that, you know, me being sad, upset, even if it's at something, it's not at you. And if I'm upset at something, it's usually at the something and not necessarily the person. Excuse me. And if it's at the person, if I don't know that person, then I don't know why I would be upset at that person. I'd be a little bit more like worried about the person, why he's mad at me, you know, he's having a bad day, you know, I feel sorry for the person more than anything. Because if he's mad and I didn't do anything, or maybe I did something wrong and the person's being unreasonable, I feel more sorry for the person than being mad at them, because for them to be that upset over like maybe a small mistake, you know, not a big there's something else going on with that person. What else? I think that's it. I picked this one because, you know, it said an American lady asked Sadhguru. I was like, ooh, you know, I want to see the cockiness of American people on here. Well, luckily enough, you know, there are going to be some. This is the reason why I want Sadhguru to go to the U.S. universities. I want to hear some a-hole Americans, and so hopefully some wise Americans too, like a balance of both. And Sadhguru, you know, teaches the a-hole Americans, you know, what for. And that'll be a good thing though, because if it straightens them out, then that is just goodness, because, you know, they probably won't listen to other people. I don't know. And hopefully that'll change their mind to think more clearly than just to be arrogant, self-righteous people. But one can hope. I don't know. Hopefully Sadhguru has done one. Hopefully starts in America. I don't know if he will ever will though. Maybe there's too many colleges in India. Anyways, that's my reaction to American lady asked Sadhguru why your teachings do not work for the poor. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.